Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start today's video with a story from a bank teller who faced off with a check fraudster using quick thinking, a fake computer freeze, and one perfectly timed soda. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. He forged a check, I stalled with soda, the police did the rest. I work at a bank, and this occurred about 10 years ago. We had a customer come in slightly upset. Someone had broken into his car and stolen only a few checks from his checkbook and had immediately gone on a spending spree at nearby grocery stores. The kind where they use your check to pull the funds out immediately, identical to a debit card. Our manager immediately refunded the lost money and put a warning on his account telling us not to cash any check numbered from 1001 to 1010, the numbers of the stolen checks. He was assured that any more money he lost would be refunded. He didn't want to close the account, which is what I would have recommended, because it takes a while to get new checks and cards, and he didn't want to go through all the trouble. Not 2 days later, we have what's called a non-customer walk-in, meaning they don't have an account at that bank, but still have transactions to run, most often cashing checks. I'm currently covering for several coworkers' lunches, so I'm the only teller covering the lobby. He walks up to me, hands me a check and his ID, and tells me he wants to cash it. All right, cool. Let me just check the... Whoa, wait a minute. This is a check that was stolen from that customer a few days ago. I double and triple checked my suspicions, and I was rewarded with numerous red flags. The check number was within the stolen range, 1001 to 1010. The signature was clearly forged and was easily the most damning evidence. The amount of the check was for an absurdly high amount based on the babysitting job description scrawled in the memo line. The check was for $3,000. We, the tellers, had been instructed to call the police in the event that anyone ever came in and presented a forged check, and also had strong reason to believe that the person in front of us had done the forging. The dude in front of me was covered from head to toe with tattoos, smelled like an ashtray, dressed in the dirtiest clothes you can imagine, and had the words F off tattooed on his right forearm in very large, very easy to read letters. In other words, I was calling bullcrap on him, cashing a $3,000 check based on his babysitting work. So I needed to call the police. But how? There was no way this guy would stick around the second I picked up the phone and accused him of stealing a check, not to mention the fact that this guy actually looked fairly dangerous. Normal protocol said that I need a manager to verify the check, at which point I would go to the back room and call the cops and stay back there, leaving the customer at the counter getting frustrated and suspicious. So I improvised. I started angrily hitting the space bar on my keyboard and muttered loud enough for the thief to hear me, "Come on, not again." When he looked inquiringly at me, I scowled and said, "Sorry, my system just froze up. We've been having trouble with this stupid thing all day. Let me see if I can get someone else to do it." I gave a "for Christ's sakes, just go with it" look at my only other coworker, who fortunately picked up on what I was doing immediately and complained that, sure enough, her system went down too. I looked back up at the thief and apologized in a half laugh, half scowl that his wait would be a few minutes because our entire network had just gone down. He totally bought it, even going so far as to say something like, "Damn computers, they never work when you need them to." I agreed and told him I'd go in the back room and get his cash ready if nothing else. I called the police, explained the situation to them, and they assured me a cop was on his way to our location fast. I hung up and called our corporate office and let them know what was happening, and they assured me that I was doing the right thing and that they were sending the bank lawyer to our location ASAP. And to be safe, I then called our branch manager, who was on lunch at the time, and then the customer, and let them both know what was going on and that we'd keep them updated. Once I was done with this stuff, I walked back out to the counter and walked right back up to the thief, apologized again for his wait, assuring him that we had our IT department working nonstop on the situation, and would he like a free soda to compensate for the wait? He'd like that, so I went ahead and got him one. 5 minutes later, and I was sweating bullets at this point, my entire body was swimming in adrenaline, the cop walked in directly behind the thief, who was completely unaware of the whole situation. I made eye contact with the cop, nodded, and then nodded again towards the thief. Long story short, the thief turned around and completely went limp at the sight of cop. He admitted to stealing the checks almost instantly and was promptly placed into handcuffs right there in our lobby. Our bank lawyer, who was on the phone with a customer who'd had his check stolen, and the branch manager walked in a few minutes later after that. After the thief was hauled off, I was told I'd done well by upper management. The best part? Saying that our system was down became the company-wide go-to excuse whenever tellers needed to stall for time in order to call the police. This is maybe one of the best stories I've read on this sub. Not dealing with annoying people, but a real under-pressure situation with brilliant thinking. Great work. And our second story. Told me I wasn't qualified. I let him explain that under legal scrutiny. Took a year, but the revenge was oh so sweet. Many years ago, partner, 40s male, wanted to apply for a project management job in his current company. Would be a promotion and salary upgrade. The division head where the job was located told him not to bother applying as he wasn't qualified. Background. Partner had same qualifications as person leaving. He'd previously blocked division head from illegally using funds. Lord forbid he told them no. When they tried to go over his head, company supervisor also told them no, as what they wanted to do was illegal, backing up my partner. Fast forward a year later. The person they hired for the job had to go on medical leave for 3 to 4 months. In a meeting between partner section and division head, one who told him not to bother applying for position, he stated partner could just fill in to do the job while other person was gone. In front of everyone, from both his company and all the division bigwigs, partner said in a completely calm, expressionless voice, "You told me last year I wasn't qualified to do the job, so not even to bother applying as you'd make sure I didn't get it. However, if you now feel I am qualified, I'll be happy to do the job temporarily at the higher salary." Room was silent. The director of the division looked at the head and asked, "Did you actually say that?" "It's illegal and a potential lawsuit, by the way." When the guy stuttered and tried to explain, basically admitting he did say that, the director held up his hand to stop him from incriminating himself and the division and told the guy, "We'll discuss this later. Meanwhile, you'll be taking over the position duties while the person is on medical leave." After everyone from the division left, my partner's boss told him she about bust from keeping the laughter in at the guy's face and wished she could be a fly on the wall for that conversation. Edit, to clarify, department head had to cover the position duties while the other person was on leave, not my partner. Also, your partner's boss deserves a shout out too. You know, it took some serious restraint not to burst into laughter in that room. I'd pay money to hear the behind the closed doors fallout from that conversation. And our last story. Karen tried to control the neighborhood until my uncle buried her plans. My uncle's never been one for chit-chat. It's not that he's mean or standoffish, just fiercely private. The kind of guy who mows his lawn at 6 a.m. purely to avoid running into neighbors. Ask him his favorite color, and he'd probably deadpan classified. And for years, that worked out just fine. One side of his house backed into woods, the other was a quiet retiree who minded his own business. Peaceful, predictable, until the new neighbors moved in. Enter Sharon and Rick. Imagine the kind of couple who introduces themselves with clipboards, self-appointed neighborhood watch, HOA warriors, and cargo shorts. Sharon had this sixth sense for garage doors left open too long, always just passing by with her phone aimed suspiciously. Rick, he'd uninvitedly trim other people's hedges for visibility, like some kind of suburban topiary vigilante. Naturally, my uncle's 4-foot chain-link fence, which had been perfectly adequate for his elderly Labrador, was now apparently some kind of affront to neighborhood order. Every time he tried to read or grill on his back patio, Sharon would magically appear at the property line, arms crossed, smile tight, dropping little gems like, "You know, it'd be nice if you waved once in a while." That was the last straw. Now, my uncle doesn't do confrontation. He does quiet, effective solutions. So he built a fence. But not just a fence, this was an 8-foot-tall solid cedar privacy wall, gorgeously built, perfectly stained, and basically a wooden middle finger to nosy neighbors. It turned his backyard into a fortress of solitude. Sharon couldn't even glimpse his barbecue smoke anymore, much less judge his grill technique. It lasted 6 days. The HOA notice arrived like clockwork. Reminder, fences may not exceed 6 feet in height. Oh, and guess who was on the architectural review committee? Of course, Sharon and Rick. No tantrum, no argument. My uncle called the fence company and had them take the wall down. But while the crew worked, he sat at his patio table flipping through the HOA handbook like it was a crossword puzzle, and that's when he found it. One perfect little loophole. The handbook laid out very clear rules for fences: no taller than 6 feet, must be approved material, minimum 2 feet from shared property lines, blah, blah, blah. But nowhere did it say anything about what a fence could be built on top of. 2 weeks later, the same crew came back. First, they built a 3-foot decorative brick wall around the perimeter of the yard. Not just some pavers stacked together. This thing had mortar, reinforcement, custom caps. My uncle even made sure it matched the house's trim so it would blend in with the rest of the neighborhood for aesthetic compliance, as he put it. Then they bolted a 6-foot cedar fence on top. 9 feet of legal, glorious privacy. The day after it was done, Rick stood at the edge of his yard staring at the fence like it owed him money. Sharon showed up 5 minutes later with her trusty measuring tape and a folder stuffed with who knows what. My uncle didn't say much, just leaned back in his chair and called out, "Need a step stool?" They filed a complaint. An HOA rep showed up the next morning with his own clipboard and tape measure. He walked the property twice, measured everything, cross-referenced the handbook right there on the patio. My uncle offered him iced tea. After a while, the guy sighed, closed the binder, and said, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but technically complies." Game, set, fence. A month later, Rick and Sharon tried to install security cameras that peeked over the top. My uncle submitted a privacy violation claim. The HOA had the cameras ordered down by the end of the week. After that, silence. The hedge trimming stopped. Sharon's surveillance walks ended. They put up blackout curtains. My uncle went back to his quiet morning, sipping coffee behind 9 feet of problem-solving genius. He never bragged, never brought it up to other neighbors, but if someone ever mentioned Rick or the HOA or fences in general, he'd just smile, real small, and say, "Best fence I ever built." This reminds me of the dude that wanted to build a spot for his horses to get shade. The city, for whatever reason, wouldn't let him build it. As he looked through the building codes, he found out there wasn't any size limit on public art, so he built a giant table and chairs. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.